All right. Well, I would like to say thanks to everybody for tuning in. Tonight's guest, our first session is with Lesley Hawke. Lesley, you're currently coaching out in Alberta. Can you maybe give us a little rundown of some of the things you're doing right now? And then I'll maybe talk a little bit about some of your history as well.
Totally. Yes, I've been out in Alberta coaching for the last, well, we're going on about 14 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about. I did take a little bit of a break, but I am back in the full swing of things. I'm coaching with the Jesters in Airdrie, which is a summer program. And then I'm also starting up with the National Sport Academy, provided COVID kind of leaves us alone and we can start up again in September. That's the plan for September. So those are the things I'm sort of busy with right now. Some small group training, things like that as well. So it's keeping me busy.
Now, you've been coaching, what, about 20 some odd years, started in Ontario.
Yes.
After a very illustrious playing career, you were on the national team. And how many years did you play and how many years have you been coaching, I guess?
Okay, this is where it makes me sound really old. So I've been playing for over 25 years and I've been coaching for just over about 22 years. So yes, I did start coaching shortly after I started playing in Ontario, and we got to play in high school. So that's kind of when I started my career, and I got involved in coaching shortly after, starting with the Oshawa Lady Blue Knights House League program. I started as a convener for that, and then I kind of made my way into coaching.
Excellent.
And the rest is history.
Well, we're glad that you got into coaching and glad that you can join us tonight. Just to kind of set up the session, I know we had it on the advertisement that was over 13 tips and tricks, but it's actually under 13 that Lesley's going to cover tonight. And unless, Russ, you got anything else, we'll turn it over to Lesley and sit back and enjoy.
No, nothing from me. I'm excited. Thanks for coming again, Lesley.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just one little reminder too, if there's any questions, please put them in the chat. Sorry, Lesley.
Oh, that's all good. Yeah, so under 13, that is a fun group for sure. I do like to start with the younger players. Again, saying that I started in high school was the way it was back in the day. So you know, we had the opportunity to start in high school, and in Ontario get to play in high school, which is really cool. Out here in Alberta, we're not quite there yet. You know, there are some programs that go into the high school, but we're kind of slowly trickling in. We have some insurance stuff that we kind of have to go up against. So the U12s and the younger groups are obviously a great place to start. I'm a firm believer in the grassroots programs. Sometimes I think we have it backwards, where we're doing the specialized and the private programs before we're doing the grassroots. And obviously grassroots is very, very important to developing the game. The younger we can start, the better. I don't know about back out east, but we compete with soccer quite a bit out here. Soccer, I feel like pretty much every child out here plays soccer, and they start quite early. So for us, sometimes it's great to get out there and start talking to the young players, to get them interested in field lacrosse and show them the opportunity for that, so that they can, you know, join early before they start to specialize in one of their sports. So yeah, the U12 groups, I mean, we can go as young as, I'm pretty sure actually U5 is some stuff that's happening. When I was with Calgary Field Lacrosse, we did have a young program to start with, and they're a bunch of fun. It's a great place to start, because, you know, that's a lot of the fun gameplay, because you have to remember these children are in, you know, grade 1, grade 2, some even maybe younger. So a lot of the games that they may play at school, you can incorporate into your practices. Of course, we want to keep it as fun as we can. We want players to return. We want to kind of get them hooked so that they're playing throughout, you know, the under 12 age group, and then continuing on into the, you know, the higher age groups, and then, you know, potentially trying out for provincial and national teams as well. So those are some big dreams for, you know, for some young girls. And if you start them that early and we kind of, you know, plant the seed with that and get them super excited about it, we don't usually have a problem filling the program. So Again, out here in Alberta, we're not as fully advanced as, say, out east or in BC in regards to the amount of players that we have and our structured league and things like that. We're, still in the developing stages and trying to grow the game as much as we can. I find out here, female box is quite big out here, which is awesome. We do have a lot of female box players that come to us to come and try field. Sometimes it's great, sometimes they don't love it. It depends on, it depends on the player. It depends on what they're looking for. One thing that I typically try to let my players know is that when you do come play field, when you go back to the box floor, your stick skills are 100% better. Especially with the fact that, I get my younger players starting with both hands right off the get-go, so that, they are just practicing it all the time and they don't favor one hand over the other. And so, when they're using that and they go back to box, they're amazed with their stick skills. I know for myself playing box, that was a huge thing is the fact that my stick skills were really good because of my field stick skills. So, all these little things I try to tell the players, because especially the ones that come and go, oh, like we can't hit, like, what do you mean we can't hit, right? And so to try to make them realize that the game is still quite aggressive, sometimes more than we would like. But because we don't have equipment, obviously we don't want to be hurting other players. So, for them to not hitting and just using your stick for defensive purposes and your feet can be quite an adjustment. But if you kind of let them know and say, hey, take a look at an NCAA game or, a US-Canada game, and you're going to see like these girls, they are tough. And trust me, like going up against some of them playing defense or having them play defense on you, it hurts. And, you come out with a lot of bruises. So the game is just as tough. It's a little bit more of a focus on the finesse of the game, the speed of the game, the skill of, running it as fast as you can and passing it up to the players and moving it around. These are all things that are, kind of specialized to field. Field is also very unique. There are a lot of rule changes coming down the pipes, but it still is a very unique game. And I think that's important for the young players to know because, often people come to a field practice and they, dad has pulled out his old box stick and, just use this, you're good. Let's use this for the practice. And they come and we have to switch their stick and, like, wait, what is this? Like, it has no pocket. How am I supposed to cradle with this? So, it just kind of pointing out the uniqueness of the game, which makes it so much more exciting because there really truly is no other game like the women's field game in the world, to be honest. And some unique rules, like now it is changing, but things like, stopping on the whistle, things like that, you don't hear that in other games. So it's really trying to work around those things and helping the players come up with strategies so that, if the whistle blows and you're 20 feet away from your player, you've got a lot of catch up to do. And to really kind of keep them focused on those sorts of things. But again, depending on what you're coaching. So, I've coached the rep level, I've coached house league, I've coached university, things like that. So obviously everything is going to be a little bit different in how you work with the players, and things like that. So, U12, I imagine, in Ontario, I think they do have a pretty solid league for the younger players with provincial championships and all those sorts of things. I know that they do have modified rules, which is really good too, because we do want to focus on, again, the finesse of the game and not just sort of being sloppy with our sticks and hurting people. So the modified rules are a great way for us to learn and for us to start with the game, and U12 definitely would be using the modified rules. Basically, again, a lot of it, regardless of whether it's rep or whether it's house league or, grassroots and you're just starting, keeping it as fun and as light as you can, because we do have to remember that shortly after, or even around the 12, 13, 14 year age is when players start to lose interest, and we can lose players quite easily if we're not careful with the way that they're, treated during the games and during practices and things like that. Are they coachable? Are you able to sort of have that chat with them? If you're struggling with something, or if they're struggling with something, are they able to approach you? Things like that. Those are really, really important, especially in the younger ages, because they're extremely impressionable at that age. And, you can make or break a player at any time in their career. But I find that this younger age group really is the one that you have to be very careful with. And you do want to make sure that, they are coming out to have fun. They're not coming out because mom and dad, they got a meeting and they just need to drop somebody off at practice, so their hands aren't tied for an hour or so. You want them to come out. You want them to come out. You want them to meet new friends and teammates and have fun during the whole process. I truly believe that's how this all starts. And I know Bruce had sort of chatted about, like, talking about growing the game, which obviously is a huge part of this whole thing. And, starting with your come try it clinics, things like that, I think is a great place to start. Free clinics where players just come out and, they try the sticks, you play a couple games with them, things like that. You can sort of touch base with each player and, let them know how they're doing and encouraging them, things like that. I think come try it clinics are a great way to start. If you can, getting out to different practices. So perhaps, I know I'm a huge advocate for hitting up my daughter's hockey teams and really promoting sort of the cross conditioning of hockey and lacrosse. They're in two completely different seasons. So it's a great for players to, continue their conditioning and things off the ice. And then when they go back to the ice, their conditioning is incredible because they've been running all summer. So, really just hitting up those teams, hitting up ringettes is a very big one that you can sort of play off each other and vice versa. So ringettes, again, at games, especially out here, I can't speak for Ontario, but it's sort of a developing game out here as well. But that's a great way for you to get some more players and get them hooked, and then they tell their teammates and things like that. And your numbers start to grow quite a bit. But yeah, the main thing for me is the fun aspect of it. And even when you're coaching rep, that's where things get a little bit more serious, and, you are practicing and playing for a reason and for, to, potentially win a provincial championship or, tournaments, things like that. But again, it's all about the approachability. It's all how they're connecting with their coach. And I find that, a lot of my challenges and successes have come from those younger ages. And I mean, having coached for so long, I've obviously had many, many, many challenges in my career and many highlights. And the great thing about those challenges is that, I've learned a lot over the years of coaching. We kind of have a running joke. A girl that I used to coach out in Ontario moved out to Alberta, and her and I coached together for the provincial team. And so she's about, 10 years younger than I am. And they called us the good cop and bad cop. And I laughed because I always would think of myself as the bad cop back in the day, when you're a young coach and you're out to prove something. But I was the good cop. And I think that's because, just the mentality of coaching as you move through the years, you learn quite a few things. And I joke that I've softened up in my older age. And really and truly, I think that is true. And also having children obviously has softened me a little bit. But I really focus on the things that I loved growing up playing lacrosse, things that maybe I didn't love. And so then I kind of would switch it around in my own coaching. We all have our own coaching philosophies. And you know what, if you're doing something that's working for you, don't change it, just, let it evolve naturally. And as you coach more and more and more, those things just come naturally to you. So again, and because of moving out to Alberta, for me, it was a lot of, it was quite an adjustment because not nearly as many girls were playing out here when I first moved out here. which was a great opportunity for me because, you know, I had a hand in getting everything going. And, you know, I was able to sort of develop a bit of a different coaching philosophy out here because I was used to a certain way out east. And then when I came out here, again, because it was pretty much everybody was new, brand new, you know, it allowed me the opportunity to get right back to the basics. And for me, that's fun because I can change things up. So when I go back and do it again, it's like, okay, well, remember last time, maybe that didn't work so well. So let's try this. And so it's a lot of trial and error. And I think that you know, if you're as a coach, if you're super open to constructive criticism and feedback, I think that's going to help you immensely. I know myself as a young coach, you know, if something kind of came down the pipes at me, you know, my first reaction was to get my guard up and get defensive. And that's definitely not the way I see things now. I appreciate any feedback and from players, from parents, you know, directors of clubs, things like that, because to me, I mean, that's how we grow. And that's how we grow as a coach. This is how these players grow. And when you get to do it together, that to me is a huge thing. And so, you know, getting back into coaching. So again, you know, if you've got these younger age groups, that's a perfect time to, you know, if you've come up through the program and say you've gone away to school, or maybe you haven't gone away to school, maybe you're still in high school, that's a great opportunity for you to give back and to start coaching, especially if you're, you know, coaching other sports, things like that. This is the perfect opportunity to get involved and to sort of have an impact on these younger girls, because really and truly they see these girls, you know, playing maybe the practice after or what have you, and they're their idols, right? They look up to them and they think that they're the greatest things. And if those players come back and coach, even better, because then these girls have these older girls teaching them firsthand. And it's just such an amazing cycle to watch when people get involved again. And it is something that I like to encourage, especially out here in Alberta, because again, we only have a few clubs going right now. And I mean, it's slowly growing, which is great. But for a while, I think a lot of it was, I would take it on myself. And I needed to learn to, you know, bring on other people and allow other people to be running things and things like that, because to me, that's super important. And I mean, you can't do it all yourself. So for me, that was a bit of growth for sure. And now it's just something that I encourage all the time. And, you know, you'll know as a coach, the players that you have that, you know, I really think she should get into coaching, you know, because they have the leadership qualities, or maybe they don't at all. Maybe they're that quiet player that, you know, doesn't really say anything, but, you know, has all the skills and stuff. And that, you know, is basically what brought me out of my shell. Is, you know, I had a coach that said, you should really try coaching. And I was like, yeah, right. There's no way. I'm not talking in front of people. You know, and now you can't. So it's like, it was the best thing that coach could have done for me, is to get me into coaching. And so, you know, the U12s and under 12s, it's a little bit easier to coach because they are at the basics. And, you know, they're learning the game just like everybody else. And so a lot of the things that I would work on, you know, tips and tricks wise for the U12. So again, stick work is going to be a huge thing. And depending on when they started playing, if they started playing at a really young age, you know, at 5 or 6, you know, they're probably pretty well conditioned, and, you know, their stick skills are probably, you know, pretty solid by the time they hit, you know, 10, 11, 12. And so a lot of it would be, you know, repetitive stick drills, things like that. I'm a huge believer in variety. There's nothing more that I can't stand when, you know, back in the day when I was playing, if we did the same drills over and over and over again, and I mean, we rarely did, but if it did come to that, you know, it's so boring. And to me, it was like, that's one thing I pride myself on, is variety of drills. Doesn't mean you're not getting the reps in, because you are. You're just getting them in different ways. And to me, that's even better, because that's growing the player all around and not just, specifically with one drill. And so stick skills obviously is a big thing. Like I mentioned before, starting right from the get-go, whether they're 5, whether they're 9, whether they're 11, is switching hands and using both hands at all times. You're always going to see the player who, and I mean, you may not know at first who's a lefty, who's a righty, but you always see the player that, kind of tries to keep it in her strong hand. And, I'll always say, really and truly, this is just benefiting you, right? And so I say, as soon as you start getting it on both hands, you're going to be amazed with yourself, and it just becomes second nature and something that, is going to benefit you big time as you move up through lacrosse. Being able to play with both hands. So that's something that I start right from the get-go with brand new players. Doesn't matter what age you are, you're using both hands. Again, for my box players that come to me, they don't love it, but I think a lot of it is if you do explain to them why they're doing it, they buy into it, and it's like, okay, I can try. And then just creating that safe environment for them to do that, right? Again, back in the day when I was that hard-nosed coach, it was like, oh, you dropped the ball and you did push-ups, or, you missed the net and you're running laps or whatever. And I look back, I cringe sometimes when I look back at that. Clearly I was young. And also, to me, as I learned going through everything, is just that, not to punish for, dropping the ball, things like that. It really doesn't do anybody any good. Again, everybody has their own coaching style. So this is purely my opinion. And if you don't agree with it, that's totally fine. This is just what I have found has worked for me. So, more into being very supportive and allowing them to do those things and drop the ball and, all of that, because in a safe environment, because then they're more inclined to use both hands, right? If coach isn't going to yell at me because I dropped it using my left hand, I'm probably going to use my left hand more, because I know she's not going to, make me run suicides for it. So, creating that environment to allow them to try new things, to try a different shot. It's not, I used to think, if someone's doing the behind the back or, trying some fancy shot, it was kind of showboaty. Whereas now I encourage players to do that, because the more flexible and the more able you are with your stick to do many, many things, the better player you are. So why wouldn't you allow them to try those things, right? Just try different shots. And then if it's, if they're really missing it, then, pull them aside and let them know how they can improve it. There's nothing wrong with missing the net. There's nothing wrong with dropping a ball. And I think your players need to know that in order to be encouraged to try some things that they may not be used to trying, especially switching hands. So that for me is a big one. Definitely using both hands right from the get-go. Again, when we're doing our drills and, especially with the younger kids, again, there's going to be a lot of repetition, but for the real young ones, again, a lot of the fun gameplay is what's going to make them want to come back to practice, right? And to play a game. And so you can even just make up some sort of game where you're utilizing the skills that you need to on the field, but you're making it into, a fun game. Like, I can't remember. I think I used to use Octopus for any of you teachers who are out there. And they had a blast. And I mean, these are my U15, so we're not even talking U12. But, keeping it fun and keeping it light. And of course, there's time where you need to put, your nose to the grind and making sure that you're honing in on your skills and things like that. But I find for the most part, especially the younger players, you do want to make sure that they're having fun. And it sounds so cliche, but it is so important, and it's something that will bring them back year after year. And so having that fun. I think another thing that's big for me when I'm coaching the younger players is, again, explaining why they're doing what they're doing. So, you know, if we're going out and doing some drill that, you know, they're like, well, why are we doing this? You know, we may not do it on the field or something like that. I do always explain to them why we're doing it, because to me, that's just a no-brainer. Like, it's not top secret, you know, we're doing it because this is how it's going to help you when you are on the field. This is going to help how it's going to help you mentally when, you know, you're exhausted and it's the end of the game and you're going into maybe overtime and you're, you know, I don't know if I can do it. These are the sorts of things that we're building up to. And I think that explaining that to them, even the younger players, I mean, there is a certain way you can explain things, you know, even have them sort of relay it back to you, and it's okay, like, this is what I heard, is this what we're doing? That's a great conversation starter and something that to ensure that, you know, they know why we're doing what we're doing. Another thing for me coaching the younger age is, and it sounds kind of funny, but mental training is something that I like to incorporate right from the get-go. Mental training, visualization, all those sorts of things. So I'll give you an example of visualization. Is something as simple as when they are looking to take, say, a free shot from the 11 meter, they, you know, focusing on the spot that they, you know, where they want to shoot it, and visualizing the ball going to that spot. You know, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go there. And again, you know, depending on, I mean, you're going to have your goalie who's going to be able to read that quite easily, you know, if I'm staring at the spot that I want it to go to. But, you know, there are some other tricks that you can do with that, but simple visualization. Another big thing is, you know, if I know that players are, you know, they're struggling, or, you know, I see Susie who keeps dropping the ball, and I see her, you know, every time she does it, and she's, you know, her stick's dragging, and she gets to the back of the line and she's waiting to go again, and it's like, well, I'm just going to drop the ball again. Really important times to sort of check in with that player, right? You know, just kind of making sure that everything is good, and, you know, that might be, you know, a couple of seconds during the drill, or you can take a couple minutes after practice, depending on when you want to time it. You know, if you don't want to sort of isolate them from the group. But sometimes it is good to have that conversation, like, hey, what's going on, right? Like, you know, I noticed that you're getting quite frustrated. You know, tell me what's happening here, right? And so, you know, they might just be like, well, I just can't catch the ball today. And so be it, right? Okay, well, today, you know, today is just not your day for catching the ball, and no big deal, right? So then just get back in line and keep doing your thing. And, you know, maybe next practice, you'll be catching it a little bit more, and guarantee after you take that little bit of pressure that they've already put on themselves off of them, yeah, they go back out and they do start to catch the ball. So having those conversations, having the mental training and the visualization, I don't think it's ever too early to start with those sorts of things. I think the more seasoned they are with it as they go through the years of lacrosse, and whether they go on to, you know, university or post-secondary, or even the national team or a provincial team, these are all things that are going to benefit them, and they're not going to just benefit them in lacrosse, they're going to benefit them in life. So, you know, teaching them those lessons early on, I think is super beneficial. And it allows them to use those skills, again, in all areas of their lives. I'll give you another example. Because of COVID and not being able to sort of train the way that we're used to training, last summer we did some outdoor training, and then we were, of course, all spaced apart. There was no defense, anything like that. It was basically just passing and catching the ball. And so, I mean, sure, we could do that for an hour, but that's going to get a little bit stale. So what I started to do with the players is they would be passing and catching to each other, and then in between, say, 4 passes and catches, they would do push-ups, or they would do, you know, mountain climbers, anything like that. And I told them the reason for doing that is because, you know, the more tired we get, the sloppier our sticks get. So if they can condition themselves, you know, to be doing these push-ups and everything, and, you know, their arms are just exhausted, and yet they can still get up and still pass and catch accurately, you're laughing. So that was something that I sort of implemented last summer. to be creative and to not just have us standing around passing and catching, because again, COVID did put a damper on, well, pretty much everything. So, you know, to make it, to be creative with it as well, because I really, again, it's that interest level, right? So if they come out and like, oh, that's great, we just pass and catch, I could do that with my wall at home. You know, they may not be inclined to come back, but you know, if you're again, you're explaining to them why they're doing it, and they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, I was pretty tired, but I still was able to catch the ball and pass it accurately. You know, that kind of gets them pumped up and good to go. I'm just seeing a question here. That I can address here.
Hey,
so,
Lesley, it's just for us here. You've got that question? You can see
I
it?
do, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just read it out here and then I can address it here. So in BC, there are community-based lacrosse clubs and private select clubs for men's lacrosse, but none of them seem to have a women's lacrosse program. Do you see a need for the clubs to have a women's program in order to expose women's lacrosse and give those players more exposure to schools like they do with the men's program? 100%. Yeah, 100%. I'm just trying to think here. So, because I just know of this certain clubs in BC that have the women's program. And I know, again, it's something where we're all sort of running on different timelines. In Alberta, you have no idea what sort of weather you're going to get every 5 minutes. So our season is quite short. I know in BC, I think they're able to go from September, I want to say almost into February. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that allows them a lot of time to be playing together. And yes, of course, this is somewhere where, you know, now I don't know how they work it so that the programs, if they can play each other or not. If the BCLA has I'm pretty sure they have a provincial championships, if I'm not mistaken. And again, same with Ontario. Ontario, their season starts a little bit sooner than, say, us out here in Alberta, and goes right into September, I think. Again, sorry if I'm wrong. But yeah, so I think it's crucial that you have the women's program. You know, as much exposure as the men's programs are going to get, you want to get your female programs the same exposure, because yes, to go away to school, to do things like that. I'll give you an example. I'm talking with a girl from Alberta who's looking to go to Queens in Ontario, and I can give her you know, lots of encouragement for the OUA because I played in the OUA and I loved every minute of it. And so, you know, I can really pump her up with that and say, yeah, you play for Queens, you're going to have a blast. You know, in Queens, they've got a solid team. And, you know, the fact that I can tell her that, and the only thing I was saying to the coach, you know, if they're asking for strengths and weaknesses, and I think one of the weaknesses for us especially is the fact that we don't get a lot of legit gameplay, because I mean, again, so I'm just speaking for Alberta here. So we've got Edmonton, we've got Red Deer, and then we've got Calgary, Airdrie, Calgary, you know, South Calgary. Those are sort of where our clubs are. So unless we're going to be traveling to play them, otherwise we don't really have, it's a lot of inter squad. Your players might have a low number, and you know, it's kind of playing the same teams over and over again, or same players over and over and over again. So that what I would say is our only weakness, is that we don't get a lot of gameplay. Whereas in Ontario, they're playing every weekend, you know, if not more, because they've got all of these different cities playing lacrosse, which is amazing, and something that we can definitely all strive towards. So any exposure you can get the female programs in BC, if you've got lots of men's programs going on, I find is beneficial. Sometimes I find that running like the female practices alongside the male practices, if you can set it up like that, is a great way for you to catch all the younger sisters, or, you know, the ones that are coming to their brother's practices and they don't want to be there. And it's like, hey, I didn't even know that was available. Maybe I can go try women's lacrosse, right? So things like that. Yes, I think it's very important. And again, once we're able to travel, which I really hope is soon, any sort of gameplay that you can set up with local or, nearby cities, or even if you cross the border into Seattle, for instance. I know that there's a ton of teams in Seattle. So, any sort of gameplay that you can get, the more you do that, the more exposure you're going to get. And that's going to benefit, especially the female programs. I hope that answered your question. I hope that wasn't too roundabout there.
We do have another question, Lesley. It's Bruce. Sorry.
Hi.
Tom asked, any suggestions or tips on raising young players' compete level?
Yes. Okay. So that, again, I think I would speak to that regarding, if you're getting into, are you like referring more to a rep program, like if they're playing rep program versus say just house league, or are you just talking about competing in general? Like if they're not sort of, if they're out at practice and not necessarily getting in there, if you will.
Hey, Lesley, it's just Russ. I would ask on that. A lot of times you'll get rep level kids that are all kind of a little bit more motivated. So I find the issue for me as a coach sometimes is at the house level, how do you get the kids to up their compete level? Can you maybe kind of talk to both and give some ideas? Perfect.
Yeah, totally. So I'm talking having fun to keep actual gameplay where you keep score. Yeah. So having said that, I mean, even when we're talking at the house level, especially when I was convening house league, I think we had 3 teams or something, but we were still playing. And sometimes, and I hate to say it, but sometimes even just playing for something is going to motivate them a little bit more, right? So even though we only had 3 teams, we would have medals for all 3 teams. And, I'm not talking about the participation ribbons. We would have those medals. You were playing to win the gold medal. And I think sometimes that in itself is something that, helps them compete a little bit more. Even I would say, even going back into practice, if you're upping the compete level in your practices, that's going to, relay into your game. And so you're saying, I'm talking moving from having fun to actual, yeah. So, that's definitely something where the drills and stuff that you're doing in practice. So again, having fun, is your base. But yes, adding those drills, a pretty basic drill is like the ground ball drill, where you're literally having one person on each side of the coach tossing out the ball. The 2 of them go for it. Whoever doesn't get the ball plays defense. And if you do get the ball, you can go to net. So simple games like that, you're never not going to have a player who decides, I'm just going to hang back and play D. It just doesn't happen, right? So drills like that, I think, are what help the players start to get into that compete level. If you're playing for something, that's always a little bit of a bonus. But yeah, I think it all starts in your practice and, having that conversation with your team right from the get-go, right? Just making sure everybody's on the same page, so that if you do have a player who maybe this isn't what they're looking for, maybe they are looking for, a house league, again, you're still competing, but it's at a less of a, what's the word I'm looking for? There's less pressure maybe in those areas, versus coming to, a rep team or whatever. And so, again, telling them your coaching philosophy, this is what I'm looking to do this year. This is what our team is looking to do. And, having them figure out, is this what I'm looking for, or maybe is it not? So that way they know that if your team is coming to compete, then you're going to see a lot of the drills and a lot of the gameplay. It's going to be hardcore, and that's what you're out there to do. Yeah. So I would say any of those drills that you can get them going. I mean, anytime you're using offense and defense, they're there to compete, right? They don't want you to go, if you're playing D, they don't want you to go on and score on them, right? And vice versa. So yeah, so I think that's the best way that you can kind of get that level up. And again, if you have a particular player you see is struggling, just having that conversation, right? Like, what do you see? I even like to even set a goal for each practice. You know, what's my goal for today? You know, what do I want to come out of this practice with? What do I want my players to come out of this practice with? And, you know, checking to make sure you're on the same page, right? And then that way there's no questions about it. You know what you're coming to do. And then you can gauge whether you were successful or not at the end of the practice. I hope that answered your question.
I think it's great.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if is there anything else you wanted me to touch on with the younger groups, or?
Yeah, I've got this one question, because even out of here in, you know, Cranbrook, which is closer to you, we're trying to get a women's field program, but one of the issues we have is small numbers. Do you have a couple of different game ideas, like modified games, like you say, to get that compete level, but to give kids a chance to play where you might only have 12 kids, you can split them up? Do you have some ideas around that?
Yes, actually we used to play a 7v7 league. I remember when I was playing for Team Ontario, they developed a 7v7 league. And again, so if you only have 6 players, you're going to knock that down a little bit, or 12 players, sorry. But I find that was probably those were the most beneficial games to me, because you did a crap ton of running, and you people were touching the ball because you didn't have as many people on the field. Another one of the rule changes is that they're only going to have 9 aside, where we're used to having 11 in our goalies. So that's going to open up the field quite a bit, because the field is still the same size, and yet we have less players on there. So I think anytime, just even if 3v3, like people, I find, especially in practices, they love when you do 3v3 at the end, or you're doing, even if you're starting with 3v2, because that's really going to get the compete level up for your defense for sure. And it makes them, you know, start to communicate, because they just have to. And it's competitive, right? People, they're there to play. And so really and truly, I mean, I'm used to working with small numbers, Russ, because again, you know, Alberta it was quite new, aside from some teams that were happening. And so, you know, I'm used to small numbers, and I think the more creative you are, and like I said, even in the drills, if you throw in that, the competitiveness, no one's ever going to back down from it, I can assure you.
You touched a little bit about on, you know, getting you know, more women into coaching, and, you know, kind of, you know, having that transition from playing to coaching. Maybe talk a little bit about some more strategies on that, and maybe, you know, talk about, you mentioned somebody, you know, kind of pushed you, you know, so who would be a mentor of yours, and, you know, maybe talk a little bit about that as well.
Oh, I love talking about my mentor. So, and I'm, you know, she's pretty well known. Roxanne Curtis was the gal that got me into field lacrosse. She was my basketball coach. And as you're probably aware, basketball and lacrosse are very similar in many rights. And so she thought, well, why don't you just come try out? The team was brand new. And she said, why don't you come try out? And I was like, well, I guess I need a spring sport, and I don't play soccer. So, you know, I'll do that. And so she was the one who got me involved. And then she definitely encouraged me all throughout. She was the same person who said, you know, why don't you try out for Team Ontario? You know, why don't you try out for Team Canada? And she was the one who, you know, had got me into coaching. She would often put me in a leadership role. Like even in basketball, I was not a phenomenal basketball player, but, you know, she allowed me to sort of take on that leadership role. And I think that, I mean, boosted my confidence like nobody's business. I was so incredibly painfully shy when I was growing up. And, you know, I tell people that and they laugh, because, you know, I'm a completely different person after starting to coach. You know, my comfort level, I have no problem talking in front of people. And so she's the one who really pushed me all the way through. And I'm so blessed that I've had her in my life, because, you know, I don't think I would have done nearly as much as I could have if I didn't have her in my corner. And again, you know, I sort of do that with the players that I have. You know, again, if I see someone who I think they would make a great coach, right? Even if I think maybe they wouldn't make a great coach, like there are some people that will surprise you, and, you know, putting them in that role and giving them that sort of that leadership, is sometimes all that they need. Like maybe no one else has done that for them, right? Maybe no one else has thought, well, yeah, you could try coaching and probably really good at it, right? So to give them that opportunity, I think is basically all you need to do is allow them the opportunity, see what they can do with it. And you'll be amazed by some of the players that come out of the woodwork and decide to give back. And that to me is the most rewarding thing of everything, for sure.
Excellent suggestion.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Russ.
Oh, no, I was just going to throw in, of course, women's box is becoming more and more popular. You know, some other ideas for, because the synergy of the seasons can be an issue or may not be an issue. You have a short season for field, especially out here on the prairies in that area, but some ideas on developing some synergies between your box players and your field players so they can feed off of each other a little bit.
That is a great question. And again, I don't know how much other provinces struggle with this. And I don't even like to use the word struggle, but it is something that we come across as field coaches and players every year. We do sort of have to piggyback off of the box program. Again, because it's such a small pool of female players. And so what I've tried to do over the years is sort of move away from that. We used to go, right to the box players, come play field, like come try field, you'll probably love it. And so then I kind of started to, bang my head against the wall with that because I wasn't really getting anywhere because they were so, into box, which is totally fine again. But they just weren't the ones that I wanted to sort of hit up because it's just, I wasn't getting anywhere. So that's where I started to go to the ringette players, the hockey players, tried to get the soccer players before they're committed, basketball players, those are the ones that we really try to hit up. And then again, if you've got those box players coming to you, I think, again, my main thing is like pumping it up. Like, you know what, you're going to come out here, use your field stick. You go back to your box season, you're laughing, like you're on the floor, you're switching hands. Like people are like, whoa, where'd that girl come from? Right. And so I always try to kind of push that. And I mean, there's not a whole heck of a lot I can do or we can do at this point regarding seasons, unfortunately. But I think really and truly, if you do try to sort of try to hit up the other sports as much as you can. An athlete's an athlete. And I find that a lot of times when they're playing other sports, they come and play lacrosse and they just get it right off the get-go because, they already have the hand-eye coordination, things like that. Having said that, though, on the flip side, I've had a lot of box players who've come to field and never went back to box. Because they just got hooked and they went to school and, those are the ones that you sort of rely on to spread the good word and say, hey, like this is what I got to do with field. And I think that's another big thing too, is that yes, box is getting a lot bigger, which is great because also I find that a lot of schools in the States are looking for Canadian players specifically because they are box players and they have that aggressiveness, they have that drive and the sort of things that come from box that maybe you wouldn't get from field. And so, I find that that's beneficial, but, kind of pointing out the fact that you could play for a provincial team, you could play for the national team, right? And typically if you're just coming out of as a box player, chances aren't great for you. But if you get that field stick in your hand and you work with it, I mean, a perfect example out here is Jordan Constance. I think she played for me for 2 months. She was a box player, played field for me for 2 months and made Team Canada. So, there's always that exception to the rule. But, just really kind of pointing out the benefits of playing fields too is a big thing. If you're in with the member association and you can chat about schedules and seeing how you can work it off each other, that might help you as well. But sometimes they're pretty set in stone, I find. So you're doing a lot of piggybacking.
Well, I really, again, this is why I love doing these sessions. It's always picking 3 or 4 things out. But I haven't even thought about going to like the high school women's basketball team or the junior high basketball team. And when you think of it, it's just such an easy synergy. We're trying to, pull kids back and forth between lacrosse, both sides, but some girls don't want to play box. So if I'm only going to box lacrosse to recruit it, You know, no different than guys, right? You want to go to multiple sports. It's a great point, and I think it's going to change kind of some of the recruiting we're doing even here. Where can, you know, people that are on the panel or watch the rebroadcast, where are some easy resources to find? One of the issues is, you know, America is so much more developed as far as women's field resources than Canada. Where are some go-to, maybe a couple or three resource bases for you that new young coaches or new coaches can go to?
Well, speaking of the US, I am a big fan of US lacrosse. They have, they even have a drills archive, and they have more drills in just the free archive than, you know, I've seen collected, you know. I mean, we're good with drills and things like that, but they just have this immense amount of different drills and stuff. So that is one place I do often go. I do become a member of US Lacrosse. You don't have to access their archive, but they have so many drills. And sometimes I even take the male drills and just, you know, custom them to the women's. And so that you're never running out of ideas. What's another one? I'm part of something on Instagram right now. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's women's lacrosse drills, actually, I think. And what they do is they have somebody, like a different speaker, pretty much every week. You know, they've had Emily Boissonneau from Ontario, because she's coaching at Pitt now. And they've had Katrina Dowd is a part of it. So another big name in, you know, the professional lacrosse and US lacrosse. So I find their site, and I'll send you the link, because I can't remember the exact name of it. I think it's Women's Lacrosse Drills. They're a great resource. And if you become part of their monthly thing, they can, they have a whole site of drills as well. And the coaches that talk, they often give their, you know, their drills and things like that. So they've compilated a whole bunch of different drills for that as well. I just see a question here in Ontario. What about connecting with any of the awesome OUA ladies coaches for ideas? Well, there definitely is a lot of OUA awesome lady coaches out there, that's for sure. Yeah, that's the thing too. I mean, I think we need to be, and I think that we've always done a really good job about this, but, you know, let's sharing our drills, sharing our, you know, our knowledge about the game, because there are, like you said, Russ, like there's things that, you know, I may have never even thought about, right? And then someone mentions it, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, no brainer. Like I said, you should have done that, right? So I think because we are still growing, you know, Canada-wide, really, and, you know, the US, they got it going on, and it's something that we can strive to be. I think sharing those ideas, and yes, connecting with other coaches, like we're all doing the same thing. So let's make sure that we connect and we can share their ideas, and, you know, you're not giving away your secret game plans or anything like that, but, you know, we need to, especially because it is such a small community, and that really only benefits everybody when we're doing that. So yeah, so I think
Bruce is gonna wrap it up, but I just wanted to thank you. I picked out about 7 or 8 things. We're really trying to develop our women's field here. We've got a lot of really keen girls, and it's been a struggle for me to just kind of get my head around how I'm going to organize that. So, and to finally meet you in person, I've heard some really good things. So appreciate it a lot.
What? We used to meet in Kamloops, and Vancouver, Victoria, and Cowichan would bring a team, and Calgary would bring a team, and we would meet in Kamloops, and we would play like a small tournament. So those are always ideas as well, because I know Cranbrook too, like that would be a meeting place. So you know, just to get some extra gameplay on the side, and because we're so close, those are ways that we can do that as well, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I want to quickly, you know, maybe give you an opportunity to kind of tell maybe about one other venture you got going on quickly, and then we'll wrap up. So I know you've started a new venture. Maybe tell us a little bit about that quickly.
Oh, are you talking about my new business?
Yes, exactly. Give you a chance to plug your new business.
Oh, thanks, Bruce. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did start my own online fitness business. So I am looking to eventually expand to probably some team training, things like that. So in the meantime, I'm just doing at-home workouts for people that, you know, maybe don't love hitting up the gym. I personally love to work out at home. I just find it's motivating to go down to the basement versus out to the gym, but that's my thing. But yeah, so I'm just kind of providing those workouts for other people 3 times a week. And then eventually I probably will get into more of the personal training and the group training as well, team training, things like that.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I read your
Thanks
bio.
for
It was a very good story, and then how it came about. You know, before we close up, I just want to thank our sponsor, Epic Lacrosse, you know, for all that they've been doing with the Playbook, their sponsorship. And then lastly, I would like to echo what Russ said. There was a lot of great takeaways today. You know, simple little things like checking in with your athletes and, you know, just talking about strategies to help get more women playing and coaching. You know, there's a lot of great knowledge you shared with us. So Lesley, we really want to thank you for joining us. It was an excellent session, and you know, I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as Russ and I did.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm seriously honored to be able to speak with you guys. So I really
and I think we're going to see you next week, if I remember right, for a little bit of a panel discussion again.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to hit you up. You drop knowledge like that, we'll bring you back.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was useful.
Yeah, no. So on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific with Brody Merrill and Riley O'Connor to talk about you know, the hybrid men's field lacrosse player. So again, thanks Lesley, and look forward to seeing everybody in about 35 minutes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Lesley.